The biker's fingers hooked into her collar before anyone in the diner moved. "Take it off." He said it loud enough for the whole room to hear. Maya did not scream, did not cry, did not beg. She just looked at his hand, the way you look at something broken that you are deciding whether to fix or step over. From the back corner booth, a chair scraped the tile floor. A man in military camouflage stood up slowly. At his feet, a German shepherd lifted his head. The biker laughed. "What's your dog gonna do, hero?" He was about to find out. Subscribe now and drop your city in the comments. Stay until the very end. This morning changed everything. Cole Merritt had been sitting in the back corner booth for 22 minutes, which was long enough to finish one coffee and start a second, and establish the complete three-dimensional picture of every person in the Pinewood Diner that 14 months of deployment had made automatic. Booth by the window. Retired couple. Matching windbreakers, splitting a pancake plate. No threat. Counter, far end. Truck driver, third refill, watching the sports ticker above the coffee machine. No threat. Table near the jukebox. College-age kid with headphones and a laptop. Had not looked up once. No threat. Behind the counter, one waitress, mid-20s, dark hair in a ponytail that was losing its argument with the morning. Apron with a coffee stain that had not been there when her shift started. Moving between tables with the specific economy of someone who had been on their feet for a long time and had learned to stop wasting motion. Delta was at his feet. Chin on his paws, amber eyes moving through the room in the slow, systematic sweep that Cole had spent 2 years learning to read. Not a dog sleeping, a dog working. The door opened at 8:12, and Delta's chin came up before Cole's eyes moved. 5 of them. Cole counted automatically. The way they came through said everything he needed to know in the first 4 seconds. They did not look around when they entered. They spread out with the easy territorial confidence of men who had done this before and had learned that the doing of it was easier than the expecting of it. The biggest one, thick neck, fresh ink up both arms, found the counter and found Maya behind it in the same sweep. His name was Garrett Slade, but Cole did not know that yet. He knew the type, the specific architecture of a man whose confidence had never been seriously tested and had therefore grown into something that mistook the absence of resistance for an invitation. Slade's eyes stayed on Maya while he sat down, not looking at the menu, not looking at the coffee, looking at her. Cole picked up his cup. Delta's ears rotated forward by 15 degrees and held. Maya brought water and menus with the professional neutrality of a woman who had assessed the situation in the same 4 seconds Cole had, and had made the calculation that neutrality was the management strategy most likely to result in these 5 men drinking their coffee and leaving. "Morning. I'll give you a few minutes." "Don't need a few minutes." Slade's voice was the kind that was designed to fill rooms. "Just you." His friends laughed. The specific automated laughter of men who had agreed in advance to find everything funny. Maya did not take the bait. "What can I get you?" "A better attitude," the one on Slade's left said. He reached across the counter and flicked the laminated edge of her name tag. "Says Maya. That your real name or your work name?" Cole set down his cup. The sound was quiet. Delta did not move, but the muscles along his shoulders shifted in a way that anyone who had worked with him would have recognized. Maya stepped back from the counter by 18 inches. "I'll give you a few minutes to look at the menu." Her voice was still level, still professional, still the surface that the job required over whatever was underneath. Slade got off his stool and walked around the end of the counter. Behind it. The counter was the line. Walking behind it was the declaration that there was no line. The retired couple by the window went still. The truck driver put down his coffee mug. The college kid pulled off his headphones. "Hey," Cole said it without raising his voice. "The way you said something when you needed it heard, rather than announced." Slade stopped and turned his head. Looked at Cole's NWU Type 3 camouflage. Looked at Delta. Looked back at Cole with the expression of a man who had decided the obstacle was manageable. "Sit down, soldier. This is private." "Step back from behind the counter." Cole stood. Not fast, not aggressive, the specific controlled movement of someone for whom standing up was a decision rather than a reaction. Delta rose with him, same pace, same control. The amber eyes moved from Cole to Slade and held. "I said, sit down." Slade stepped fully behind the counter now, closing the distance to Maya, who had backed against the shelf of coffee mugs and had nowhere further to go. Cole came out of the booth and covered the distance across the diner in 8 steps. Delta matched him, stride for stride. "Last time," Cole said. He stopped 6 feet from Slade. "Step away from her." Slade looked at Delta. The dog was not growling yet. He was in the low body posture that combat handlers called the assessment position. Weight forward, ears locked. The posture that came immediately before the posture that ended things. "What's your mutt going to do?" Slade said. Delta's growl arrived then. Not building, arriving. The full, resonant, floor-vibrating register of a working dog that had finished its assessment and reached a conclusion. And the conclusion was that the man in front of it was a problem that had been defined and could be solved. The laughing from Slade's friends stopped. Cole saw the shift, heard it in the silence where the laughter had been, saw it in the way the 2 men by the jukebox straightened up, the way the one at the counter turned on his stool to face outward instead of inward. 5 men, and a recalibration was happening. And the recalibration was not in the direction of backing down. Maya's voice came from behind Slade. Quiet, clear, the tone of someone who had been assessing the room while Cole and Slade had been having their exchange. "There are 6 civilians in this room," she said. 3 of them are not involved in the situation. Slade turned to look at her. "Nobody asked you." "I'm asking you," she said. "Step out from behind the counter." Slade laughed. Then he reached out and hooked 2 fingers into the collar of her uniform shirt. "Take it off," he said, loud, for the room. The specific performance of a man who needed an audience for what he was doing, and had decided he had one. The retired woman by the window made a sound, small and involuntary. Cole said "Delta" in the same flat, controlled voice he used for every command, and Delta moved. Not gradual, not building. The transition from assessment to engagement that the dog made in military working operations. The specific, explosive translation of 80 pounds of trained muscle from coiled stillness to full-speed trajectory. And Slade's laugh was still leaving his mouth when Delta hit him in the chest and drove him backward off his feet. The crash of the man in the table and the sound of it brought the whole diner to absolute silence in the space of 2 seconds. Delta planted on Slade's chest, jaws open, not biting, 12 inches from his throat. The growl, now a continuous, physical presence in the room. Cole moved to the counter in 3 strides and positioned himself between Maya and the 4 remaining men. "Nobody move," he said. One of them moved. The one on the left, heavyset, had been calculating angles since Delta launched, and had decided that the window was the 3 seconds while Cole's attention was on Delta and Slade. He lunged for Maya's arm. Maya was not there. She had moved the moment Cole said "Delta," stepping left along the counter, and the man's hand grabbed air, and before he could reset his weight, Maya's right hand was on his wrist, and the pivot that followed was not something that happened by accident. Compact, precise, the specific geometry of a technique that had been trained into muscle memory. and the man went down on one knee with a sound that was surprise before it was pain. "What the—" he started. Maya drove her elbow into the space below his jaw. He went to the floor. Cole looked at her. Maya looked at Cole. In the specific charged silence of a diner, where 2 of 5 aggressors were on the floor, and 3 were making the calculation about whether to complete the math, something passed between Cole and Maya that was not spoken and did not need to be. The specific recognition of one trained person identifying another. The particular clarity of 2 people who had both been in rooms where violence was a problem to be solved, rather than a thing to be afraid of. Delta's growl had not stopped. The third man recovered first. He came fast and angry, the rage that replaced strategy when strategy had just failed in front of an audience. He swung a heavy fist at Maya's head. She dipped. Just enough. The fist went past her left ear, and she drove her palm heel into his sternum, and the man stumbled backward into the counter stools and took 3 of them with him to the floor in a cascade of metal. Cole was watching her hands, not for threat assessment, for something else. Because the palm heel to the sternum was not a bar fight move. It was not self-defense class. It was the specific, efficient, emotionally stripped technique of someone who had been taught in an environment where efficiency was the only standard that mattered. The retired woman by the window was crying quietly. The truck driver had not moved, which was the response of a man who had assessed the situation correctly and understood that movement from untrained civilians was a complicating factor rather than a help. The 2 remaining men by the jukebox were looking at their 3 friends on the floor and making the calculation that men made when the math had stopped working. Cole looked at them. "Walk out the door," he said. "Right now, both of you." The shorter one looked at Slade, still pinned under Delta, one hand hovering uselessly in the air. He looked at Cole. He looked at the door. He walked out. The last one followed. Cole turned to Maya. Delta's growl had eased to the low monitoring register. Slade was not moving. "You need to tell me your real name," Cole said. "Because what I just watched you do was not self-defense class." Maya looked at him. The professional surface was still there. Barely. Something underneath it was deciding something. "I need to check on my customers first," she said. Cole almost said something. Then Delta's head came up from Slade's chest, and his amber eyes moved to the parking lot window, and his ears locked forward on something that had nothing to do with the 3 men still on the floor of the diner. Cole felt it the way he had learned to feel it over 14 months. The specific shift in the dog's attention when the threat category changed. Something was in the parking lot. Something that had not been there 60 seconds ago. And it was not a patrol car. The engines outside were not motorcycles. Cole had heard enough motorcycle engines in enough parking lots to know the difference between the rolling thunder of recreational bikes and what he was hearing now, which was the controlled, heavy idle of vehicles that had been modified for weight and had arrived in a pattern that was not accidental. 4 distinct engine notes, pulling in from different angles. The specific coordinated parking of people who had done this before and had a reason for the geometry. Delta had not taken his eyes off the window since the sound started. Not watching Slade on the floor. Not monitoring the 3 men who were variously groaning and attempting to locate their dignity. Watching the parking lot with the focused, low body posture that Cole had learned to take seriously above almost any other signal the dog could give him. "Stay where you are," Cole said to the diner. He said it to all of it, the bikers, the civilians, the bartender who had emerged from behind the counter during the fight and had not yet decided where to put himself. Maya was checking on the retired couple by the window. She was calm, practical. She had her hand on the woman's shoulder, and she was saying something quiet and specific. And when Cole looked at her, she was already looking at him. Not afraid, calculating. The specific expression of someone running a threat assessment on a situation that had just become significantly more complex. "You know what those are," Cole said. He kept his voice low enough that it did not reach the room. "I hear 4 vehicles," she said. "Heavy. Modified. They're not parking randomly." "No," Cole said. "They're not." Delta's growl returned, quieter than before. The specific register that Cole associated not with immediate threat, but with identification. The dog had found a category for what was outside, and the category was known and significant. The door opened before Cole fully processed the shift. 3 men came through first. Clean, tactical clothing. Civilian, but expensive. The kind of gear that cost more than a federal salary and was purchased through channels that did not show up in any procurement record. The lead man was mid-40s, close-cropped hair, the specific, controlled physical economy of someone who had not stopped being what he was trained to be just because he was no longer wearing a uniform. Behind him, 2 others, each scanning corners before their second foot crossed the threshold. Cole's hand moved toward his sidearm and stopped. Too many civilians. Wrong angles. He did the math in the 3 seconds it took the lead man to cross from the door to the center of the room. And the math said that drawing right now was the wrong answer. Delta held position, growling. Not at the bikers, at the new arrivals. The lead man's eyes moved through the room with professional efficiency. Corners, elevated positions, the bartender, Cole's uniform, Delta, and then found Maya behind the counter, and stopped. The stop was specific, not the stop of a man encountering a stranger, the stop of a man encountering something he had been briefed on. "Stand down," he said over his shoulder. His second man froze at the doorway. His third paused. Slade, still on the floor with the recent memory of Delta's weight on his chest, looked at the new arrivals with the expression of a man who thought the cavalry had arrived, and then watched the cavalry look past him entirely. "What the hell?" Slade muttered. Nobody responded to him. The lead man's voice dropped. He was not talking to the room anymore. "Ma'am," he said. The word was careful, deliberate. It did not belong in a roadside diner at 8 in the morning, and everyone who heard it understood that instinctively. Cole stepped to his left, positioning himself between the lead man and Maya. Delta moved with him, the natural synchronized repositioning of a handler and working dog who had spent enough time in difficult rooms together that the geometry between them was automatic. "Who are you?" Cole said. The lead man looked at him for the first time. Not the dismissive look he had given Slade, the specific, evaluating look of one trained person taking the full measure of another. Cole's uniform, his rank, Delta, the way Cole was standing. "This doesn't concern you, petty officer." "Wrong answer," Cole said. The man's eyes moved back to Maya. "We need you to come with us." Maya did not move from behind the counter. She was looking at the lead man the way she had looked at Slade's hand on her collar, the assessing look that preceded a decision. But this was different. This was recognition. "You're not law enforcement," she said. "We're authorized." "By whom?" The lead man did not answer. That was an answer. Cole kept his eyes on the man, but his attention was on Maya, on the specific quality of stillness that had come into her body since the 3 men walked through the door. Not the stillness of fear, the stillness of a person managing a response to something they had been expecting and had been hoping would not arrive yet. "Maya," Cole said quietly. The lead man's eyes moved to Cole at the name. Something flickered across his face, too fast to name. "That's not her name," he said. And then his mouth closed, the specific closing of a man who had said something he had not intended to say, and was watching the damage of it spread through the room. The diner went to a different kind of silence. Not the silence after violence. The silence after revelation. The bikers on the floor had stopped moving. The retired couple had stopped breathing. The truck driver, who had been still since the fight, was now the most still thing in the room. Cole looked at the woman he had been calling Maya. She looked back at him. Her expression had not changed by much. But in the small change that was there, he saw the calculation being revised. The 8 months of managed distance and careful surface and a name that was not her name, all running up against a moment where the surface was no longer holding the weight of what was underneath it. "How long have they been looking for you?" Cole said. She did not answer immediately. She was looking at the lead man, at his gear, at the comm wire behind his right ear, the specific equipment, the brand, the configuration. 3 weeks since they found me," she said. 8 months since I made them think they didn't have to." Slade pushed himself up from the floor into a seated position and looked between the tactical men and Maya and Cole with the expression of a man rearranging a situation he did not understand. "You guys know each other?" he said. The lead man ignored him completely. "We're not here to create problems," he said, directing it at Cole now. "This is a sanctioned retrieval. She is listed as a material witness in an ongoing classified operation." "Material witness," Cole said, "or liability." Something crossed the lead man's face that was not comfort. "I'm not authorized to discuss the parameters." "You walked into a civilian building with armed personnel and no law enforcement presence," Cole said. "You're going to need to discuss something." Delta's growl deepened. The second man at the doorway had shifted his weight, the specific weight shift of someone preparing to move on instruction, and Delta had read it before the movement was complete. "Easy," Cole said, to Delta, but loud enough for the room. The dog held, barely. Maya came out from behind the counter, not toward the door. She stepped to Cole's right side, which put her flanking him, and the three of them formed a configuration that the lead man's eyes measured and did not like. "You use civilians," she said. She was looking at Slade, at the other bikers. "You paid them to create a situation that would require a response. You expected me to stay quiet." The lead man said nothing. "You did not expect a Navy SEAL to be sitting in the back booth," she said. Cole looked at her. "You knew they were coming." "I knew something was coming," she said. Her voice was level. The specific level of a person who had been managing alone for a very long time and was deciding in real time whether the person beside them was someone they could stop managing alone with. "I did not know when or how." She looked at the lead man. "I did not know they would use civilians." "Collateral is unavoidable in a time-sensitive retrieval," the lead man said. He said it the way people said things they had repeated enough times that the saying of it had separated from the believing of it. "Collateral," Slade said from the floor. His voice had changed from angry to something closer to alarmed. "What does that mean? What are we collateral for?" Still, no one answered him. Cole's hand was at his holster, not on it, near it. The specific practice positioning of someone who had made the calculation between drawing and not drawing, and had arrived at not drawing yet, with the yet carrying the full weight of what came after it. "She is not going anywhere with you," he said. The lead man studied him. The study had the quality of a man deciding whether an obstacle was real or negotiable. "You don't have the clearance for this conversation, petty officer." "I have the standing," Cole said, "which right now is more relevant." Behind the lead man, through the cracked diner window, Cole could see the silhouettes of additional men near the SUVs. He counted without looking directly. 2 per vehicle minimum. That was 8 outside, plus 3 inside. 11 total. That was not a retrieval. That was a containment operation. Delta had been watching the window the same way Cole had. The dog's posture shifted, ears back, the specific signal that Cole associated with the dog processing a large-scale threat assessment, rather than a focused one. Maya saw it too. "How many outside?" she said. "At least 8. She exhaled once. The controlled exhale of someone revising their options. "They've been watching this location for 3 weeks, she said quietly. "That means they know the layout. They know the exits. They positioned before they came in. Which means they expected resistance. Which means they know who I am," she said. And then she stopped, and the stopping was specific, and Cole looked at her and understood that the next sentence was going to cost her something to say. The specific cost of a person releasing information they have been carrying alone for a very long time. "Tell me," Cole said. She looked at the lead man. The lead man looked back at her, with the expression of someone watching a decision happen that they could not prevent and were calculating the consequences of. "My unit ran an operation in Eastern Europe 14 months ago," she said. Her voice was steady, but underneath the steadiness, something was moving. The specific movement of a person who has been keeping a weight compressed for so long that releasing it feels like a structural change. "We collected intelligence on a trafficking network with connections to 3 governments. We got everything we came for." She paused. 3 weeks later, the operation was classified at a level above my unit's clearance. The intelligence was absorbed. She looked at the floor for 1 second, then back up. "My team was reclassified as casualties." The diner was completely silent. "All of them?" Cole said. 3 were real," she said. 1 wasn't. Cole looked at her. He looked at the lead man. He looked at the way the lead man was standing, the particular quality of a man who was not surprised by what he was hearing. The quality of a person receiving a story they already knew the ending of. "You survived," Cole said. "I made a choice," she said. "Surface and fight a reclassification order through official channels, or disappear." Surfacing meant visibility. Visibility meant they would find me before I had what I needed to make visibility survivable. She looked at her hands for a moment. The hands that had put 2 trained men on the floor of a roadside diner. "I chose to disappear. For 8 months. Under a name that is not my name." She looked at the name tag on her apron. "Waiting for a moment when I had enough leverage to surface safely." She looked at Cole. "I did not plan on this being the moment." The lead man stepped forward. 1 measured step. "You've been briefed on more than you're authorized to know," he said to Cole. Not angry, matter of fact. The specific tone of someone noting a complication for later management. "I've been briefed on exactly what she told me," Cole said. "In a civilian building, in front of witnesses." He looked at the lead man directly, all of which is now part of the factual record of this morning. The lead man's jaw moved. "You're creating problems that don't need to exist." "The problems exist," Cole said. "I'm just the part of them you didn't plan for." Delta made a sound. Not the deep growl. A shorter, sharper, warning vocalization, directed at the door, where the second operator had shifted his weight again. The shift was slight, but it was the shift that preceded a move. The specific weight transfer that happened when a decision was made and a body was preparing to execute it. Cole looked at the second operator. "Don't," he said. The operator looked at Cole's hand near his holster, looked at Delta, made the calculation, stayed where he was. The lead man looked at the window, at the SUVs, at the men outside who could come through the door in 8 seconds if he gave the order. He was running the math the way Cole was running the math, and the math was producing the same answer from both directions, which was that whatever happened in the next 60 seconds was going to happen in front of civilians in a civilian structure in broad daylight, And that had consequences that did not fit cleanly into the parameters of a sanctioned retrieval. "This is not the end of this conversation," the lead man said. He said it to Maya. "I know," she said. "You should have stayed dark. You should have left my team in the field," she said. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. The weight in it was sufficient. Cole kept his hand near his holster and his eyes on the lead man and waited. Outside, the SUV engines were still running. The men outside were still positioned. The diner was still silent. And Delta was watching the door with the amber eyes that had been right every time Cole had trusted them, and had not once been wrong. The lead man looked at Cole one final time, the look of a man making a notation. "You're getting involved in something that will complicate your career, petty officer." Cole looked at him. "My career is fine," he said. "Maya, on the other hand, needs a better explanation than collateral, unavoidable." The lead man did not respond. He turned toward the door, and his two men fell in behind him with the coordinated discipline of people who had been briefed to follow whatever decision their lead made. And the three of them walked out with a controlled, professional motion of an extraction team executing an orderly withdrawal. Not a retreat, a recalibration. Cole watched them through the window, watched the brief conference beside the lead SUV, watched the lead man key his radio, watched the body language of the other men outside shift from active containment to standby. They were not leaving. They were waiting. And in the diner, Maya put both hands flat on the counter and looked at them, and then at Cole, and said one sentence that reframed everything that had happened in the past 40 minutes, and everything that was going to happen in whatever came next. "I have the intelligence," she said. "I have been carrying it since the operation. All of it. Encrypted. On my person. For 8 months." She looked at Cole steadily. "And if they take me before I get it to the right people, 14 months of evidence and 3 dead team members become a classified footnote that nobody ever reads." Delta looked up at Cole. Amber eyes. Patient. Certain. Cole looked at the parking lot. The SUVs had not moved. The SUVs were still running. Cole could hear them through the cracked diner window, 4 engines idling with the patient, contained sound of vehicles that had no intention of going anywhere. The lead man was outside. His men were outside. But the weight of what they represented had stayed in the room, the way the smell of something stays after the thing itself is gone. Maya had said she was carrying the intelligence, encrypted, on her person, for 8 months. Cole looked at her and ran the math that 14 months of deployment had made automatic. The SUVs were positioned at the entry angles. The men outside numbered at least 8. The diner had 3 exits, front door, kitchen door, and a window in the restroom that was too small for an adult to move through quickly. The lead man had withdrawn in a recalibration, not a retreat, which meant he was outside right now, receiving instruction and adjusting his approach for a second attempt that would be more direct than the first. The window for doing something useful was measured in minutes. "How is it stored?" Cole said. Maya looked at him. "Encrypted drive, biometric lock, my fingerprint and a 16-digit sequence." She paused. "The decryption key is split. I have half. My unit's executive officer has the other half." "Where is he?" "Fort Bragg, administrative posting. He's been trying to work through official channels for 14 months. She stopped. "He thinks I'm dead." Cole processed that. He looked at the civilians still in the diner. The retired couple had not moved from their booth, the woman's hand in the man's hand, both of them very still, in the specific way people were still when they understood that the stillness was load-bearing. The truck driver was at the counter with both hands flat on the surface. The college kid had closed his laptop. Nobody was going to move without permission. The bartender spoke. His voice was quiet and directed at Cole. "I have a landline in the back, off the building's cell network." Cole looked at him. The man was mid-50s, face that had seen enough difficult mornings to know when one had arrived. "You have a signal booster in this building?" "The cell repeater out front went down 2 weeks ago. I've been meaning to fix it." He paused. "Nobody's been able to get a cell signal in here since." Cole looked at Maya. She looked at him. She had already understood. "They cut the repeater," she said. "Not an accident. They wanted no communications in or out once they moved." "They planned this specific location," Cole said. "They've known where I was for 3 weeks," she said. "They watched. They mapped. They chose this morning because the diner would be at minimum occupancy and I would be alone." Her jaw set by 1 degree. "They used the bikers to create a situation that would keep my attention forward while the vehicle's positioned. They expected me to stay controlled and quiet and wait for law enforcement, which would have given them the window to approach me outside." Cole looked at the door, at the window, at Delta, who had not taken his eyes off the parking lot since the SUVs arrived. "The bartender's landline," Cole said. "Do you have a number? Someone outside the official structure." "I have one," she said. "I have had it for 8 months, and I have not called it because calling it meant surfacing, and surfacing meant they would confirm I was alive." "They already confirmed it," Cole said. "The lead man confirmed it the moment he walked through that door. The recalibration is happening right now, and whatever comes back through that door is going to be less patient than what already came in." He looked at her. "The only advantage you have in the next 15 minutes is that they still need you mobile and compliant. Once they move to a harder approach, that advantage disappears." Maya looked at Slade, still on the floor, watching the exchange with the specific expression of a man who had come in this morning expecting to perform for a captive audience and had ended up inside something that had no category in his experience. She looked at Cole. The decision moved across her face the way decisions moved across the faces of people who had been managing alone for so long that trusting another person required a specific structural shift, not of feeling, but of operational calculus. "The number is for a man named Garrett Webb," she said. "He runs a private intelligence accountability firm in D.C. He has been building a case on the program that classified my operation for 9 months. He does not have what he needs to go public." She paused. "I do." Cole moved toward the back of the diner. "Come with me." Maya followed. Delta stayed at the front, watching the door. Cole had given him no instruction. The dog had made his own assessment of where to be. The bartender's landline was a wall-mounted phone in the supply room off the kitchen, older than the cell phone era, with a cord and a dial tone that was the most reassuring sound Cole had heard since the engine started in the parking lot. He handed Maya the receiver and stood at the doorway where he could see both the supply room and the kitchen exit. She dialed from memory. 7 digits plus area code, the specific economy of a number that had been repeated internally enough times to become automatic. It rang twice. "Webb." The voice was male, alert, the voice of a man who answered calls on the second ring regardless of the hour. "This is Sarah Vance," Maya said. A silence. 3 seconds of silence that contained the specific weight of a man processing something he had been told was not possible. "You're dead," he said. "I'm in a diner in Jacksonville, North Carolina," she said. "I have the intelligence. Encrypted drive. I have been carrying it for 14 months. I have half the decryption key." Her voice was level and fast. "The retrieval team is in the parking lot right now. I have maybe 10 minutes before they come back through the door with a different approach." "How many?" Webb said. He had moved past the shock with the speed of a professional. Cole filed that. 11, minimum. 4 vehicles. Private contractors. The program's cleanup unit." "Can you move?" "I have a Navy SEAL and a canine with me," she said. She looked at Cole when she said it. "He does not know the full situation, but he is the reason I am still able to make this call." "Can he get you out of the building?" She handed the phone to Cole. "He wants to talk to you." Cole took it. "Petty Officer First Class Cole Merritt, Naval Special Warfare Command." "Mr. Merritt, I'm going to ask you one question and I need a direct answer." Webb's voice was clean, no performance in it. "Do you believe what she told you?" Cole looked at Maya. He thought about her hands, the palm heel, the elbow, the specific, stripped-down efficiency of someone who had been trained to solve problems with minimum motion. He thought about the lead man's eyes stopping on her face. He thought about the specific way the lead man had said, "That's not her name." The way a fact came out of a person when it was not meant to. "Yes," Cole said. "Then get her out of that building," Webb said. "Not to your vehicle. They have your plates. There is a public library 4 blocks east on Garrison. Go there. Do not use your phone. Do not use hers. I will have people there in 40 minutes. A pause. "Whatever you do, do not let them take the drive." Cole handed the phone back to Maya. She said 3 words into it. "Confirmed. Moving now," and hung up. They came back into the main diner. Delta had moved from the front door to a position beside the first booth, the specific repositioning of a dog that had updated its assessment of the entry vector. Cole read it immediately. The lead man was no longer at the front. He was at the side. Cole crossed to the window without stopping and looked out. One SUV had repositioned. It was now beside the building rather than in front. The second SUV had moved to cover the kitchen exit. The third remained at the front. The fourth had gone around the back. They had the building enclosed. The recalibration was complete. Cole turned to the room. "Everybody listen to me." His voice was not loud, but it was the voice he used when he needed a room to receive information without intermediary processing. "We have people outside who are going to come back through that door in the next few minutes. They are not law enforcement. They are not here for you." He looked at each civilian specifically. The retired couple, the truck driver, the college kid. "I need all of you to move to the back of the building, into the kitchen, and stay down until law enforcement arrives. Do not come out until you hear badge numbers and law enforcement identification." The retired man stood up immediately and took his wife's hand. The truck driver was already off his stool. The college kid had his laptop under his arm. Slade looked up from the floor. "What about us?" Cole looked at him. Slade and his remaining man had not moved since the tactical team left. The fight had left them, replaced by the specific, chastened quality of people who had walked into a situation they did not understand and were now in the presence of consequences they had not anticipated. "You stay on the floor," Cole said. "You do not move. You do not speak. You tell the police everything when they arrive." He paused. "Everything, including who paid you to come here this morning." Slate's face moved. Confirmation without words. "They told you to target her specifically," Cole said. Not a question. "Guy called us 2 days ago," Slate said. His voice had the quality of a man who had reassessed the value of what he thought he had been doing. "Paid us to create a scene, rough up the waitress, make it loud. Said it would get police called, and there'd be a situation, and they'd handle the rest." He looked at Maya. "I didn't know she was anybody. I thought she was just a girl." Maya looked at him without expression. "She was never just a girl," Cole said. Delta's head snapped toward the front door. Cole's hand went to his sidearm in the same motion. 3 seconds before the door opened, he was already positioned, body angled to reduce profile. Delta at his left side in the full working posture, weight forward, the growl arriving before the door did. The door opened. The lead man came through alone this time. No flanking operators behind him. Just him and his hands visible at his sides, and the specific expression of someone who had made a decision about how this was going to go, and had walked through the door with that decision already made. "There is a way to do this that does not hurt anyone," he said. He looked at Maya. He did not look at Cole, which told Cole that the threat assessment had been updated, and Cole had been moved into the category of obstacle rather than variable. "Come with us. The drive stays with you. We take you to a secure location. You hand it over in a controlled environment. You walk away."
"She walks away to where?" Cole said.
The lead man looked at him then. "That's not your concern." "Wrong answer," Cole said. "Again." Delta stepped forward one step. The lead man's eyes moved to the dog, with the specific attention of someone who had worked with trained animals and understood what the step meant. "You are about to create a federal incident," the lead man said. His voice was still controlled, but something underneath it had changed. "Armed interference with an authorized collection operation." "Authorized by whom?" Cole said. "Because the only authorization I recognize in this room right now is the one that says a civilian is not going to be removed from a civilian building by armed private contractors without law enforcement presence and judicial oversight." He looked at the man steadily. "Write that down for whoever sent you." Maya spoke from beside Cole. Her voice was the calmest thing in the room. "Garrett Webb is on his way." The lead man went completely still. Not the controlled stillness of a professional managing a situation. The specific, involuntary stillness of someone who has just received information that reorders their understanding of everything that has happened in the past 30 minutes. "You called him," the lead man said. "He'll be here in 35 minutes, she said. "The call was on a landline. It's already in his system. Everything I told him is already logged." She looked at the man who had spent 3 weeks watching her serve coffee to people who did not know her name. "You needed me quiet. I am no longer quiet." Delta growled. The lead man looked at his hands, at Cole, at the dog, at Maya. The calculation was visible, and it was not producing the outcome the operation had been designed for. "This is not over," he said. "I know," Maya said. "That's why I called." The lead man walked out. This time, the door did close harder. Not quite a slam, the specific, controlled release of a man who was not done, but had been forced to pause. Cole looked at the window. The SUVs were still positioned, but the doors had opened and men were getting back inside. Not because they were leaving, because a decision was being made at a level above the lead man's authority, and they were waiting for it to come back down. Delta exhaled. The growl dropped. He sat. Cole looked at him. "Good boy," he said quietly. Maya was watching the parking lot. Cole looked at her profile, the specific quality of a person who had just done something they could not undo, and was living in the 30 seconds after the irreversible decision, in the particular clarity and weight of having chosen. "Webb is going to need the drive," Cole said. "He needs to be able to verify what you're telling him before his people arrive." "I know," she said. She reached behind her neck, under the collar of the uniform shirt, and unclasped a chain, a small, flat, water-resistant case on the end of it, smaller than a lighter. She held it in her palm. The physical evidence of 14 months. 3 dead team members. 8 months of a life that was not her life. All of it compressed into an object that weighed less than 3 ounces. "I have been carrying this since the operation ended," she said. She looked at it the way you looked at something you had been holding so long that your hand had forgotten the shape of your own fingers around it. Cole looked at it, then at her. "You knew this morning was going to happen." "I knew a morning like this was going to happen," she said. "I did not know what it would look like." She looked at Delta. "I did not know it would look like this." Delta looked back at her with those amber eyes and did not move. Cole checked his watch. 32 minutes to Webb's people. The SUVs outside. The lead man somewhere in that parking lot making a call to someone above his level. The civilians in the kitchen, the bikers on the floor, the bartender's landline, the library 4 blocks east. 32 minutes was a very long time, and it was already getting shorter. Cole looked at the parking lot through the window and counted what he could see. 2 operators visible near the lead SUV. The lead man on his phone, back turned, the specific body language of someone receiving instruction from above his level. The other 2 vehicles on the building's flanks, presumably still occupied. The call to Webb had bought something. He was not certain yet exactly what it had bought, or how long it would hold. But the lead man coming through the door alone the second time, instead of with a team, was a change. And changes had causes. And the cause here was that the operation had encountered a variable it had not planned for, and was waiting for someone above the lead man's authority to tell it how to respond to that variable. 31 minutes was a long time if the variable held. It was a very short time if it didn't. Cole turned from the window. "We can't stay in the building," he said. Maya looked at him. "They have the exits covered." "They have the exits observed," Cole said. "That's different. They have not moved to active blocking, which means someone above the lead man has not yet authorized the harder approach. They are waiting." He looked at Delta. "The question is whether we wait with them or we use the window. If we move and they intercept us before Webb's people arrive, we lose the drive and the window closes," Maya said. Her voice was thinking out loud, the specific quality of a trained operator running options in real time. "If we stay and they receive authorization to move, we lose the tactical advantage of being inside a civilian structure. The civilian structure stops protecting us the moment they decide the cost of not acting exceeds the cost of a public incident," Cole said. "They have been watching this location for 3 weeks. They calculated the occupancy, the sight lines, the response time for law enforcement. They are not improvising. They are executing a plan that has a next step, and the next step is not patience." Delta had moved from the front door to the counter, not because Cole had moved him, because the dog had made his own assessment of where the threat vector was shifting and had repositioned accordingly. His nose was working the direction of the kitchen exit. Cole watched him. "He's reading something at the kitchen door." Maya turned. She crossed to the kitchen entrance and stopped, listened. The specific listening of a person who had been trained to read the absence of sound as much as the presence of it. "Someone is on the other side," she said. Cole moved. He put his hand flat on the kitchen door and felt it, the faint vibration of weight on the other side. The specific micro-vibration of a person standing very close to a surface without touching it. He looked at Maya. She nodded. They had not come through the front. They had repositioned while the lead man was making his call. The kitchen exit was not an exit anymore. Cole looked at the diner. The civilians were in the kitchen. He had sent them there specifically. He crossed to the supply room door and knocked twice. "This is Cole. Stay back from the kitchen exterior door. Do not open it." The bartender's voice came back muffled. "Understood." Cole turned. The geometry had changed. They had the front door, the side entrance, the kitchen exterior, and the back covered. The fourth angle was the building itself, the interior, and the people inside it who were now between Cole and every exit. Maya was watching him think. She did not rush it. She understood that the 30 seconds he was taking right now was worth the 30 seconds because what came out of it was going to determine everything after it. "The library," he said. 4 blocks east," she said. They have eyes on the parking lot. The moment we come out any door, they see us. Not if they're watching for two people and a dog, Cole said. He looked at Slade, then at the bartender's apron hanging on a hook beside the counter, then back at Maya. She understood it faster than he said it. No, she said. It's 2 blocks on foot if we go through the back properties, Cole said. Delta moves differently when he's working off-leash. We split the profile. They'll track the dog, she said. They'll track the uniform, Cole said. He looked at his NWU Type 3. The green and brown digital camouflage that had identified him as military from the moment the lead man walked through the door. The thing that had made him visible and credible in equal measure.
If I'm not wearing the uniform, I'm not the variable they briefed against. Maya looked at him, at the apron, at the uniform, the specific look of a person who had been managing their own survival for 8 months and was watching someone else apply an unconventional solution to a problem she had been treating as intractable. The bartender, she said. Cole was already moving to the supply room door. He knocked twice. I need your help. The bartender opened it. He was a man who had been in difficult situations before. Cole could see it in the way he had managed himself through the morning. No panic, just sequential decisions. What do you need? Your apron and your spare shirt if you have one, Cole said. And I need you to tell me about the property behind this building. The bartender pulled his spare work shirt from a hook without hesitation. Neighbor behind me is a retired mechanic. He's not home Thursdays. His back gate has been broken for 2 years. Opens with a push. He handed over the shirt. After that, you're on Palmer, which runs parallel to Garrison. Library is 3 blocks down Palmer, not 4 blocks on Garrison. Cole looked at him. You knew we needed to leave. I knew you couldn't stay, the bartender said. There was no performance in it. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I know when a room needs an exit. Cole changed in the supply room in 40 seconds. NWU Type 3 folded under his arm, the bartender's work shirt on over his undershirt. Maya had unclipped the name badge from her apron and removed the apron itself. She had changed nothing else, but she had changed enough. Without the badge and the apron, she was not a waitress. Without the uniform, Cole was not a visible military variable. They were 2 people. Delta was the element that did not change and did not need to. Cole looked at the dog. You ready? Delta looked back with those amber eyes. He did not move. He had been ready. They came through the kitchen. Cole stopped at the interior side of the exterior door and listened. The micro-vibration was gone. Whoever had been positioned there had moved, either relocating to a new angle or pulling back on instruction. 26 minutes, Maya said. She had been counting in her head. Cole pushed the door open fast, low, stepping into the space with his body leading and his eyes moving to both flanks in the same motion. The immediate exterior was clear. He looked left. He looked right. He looked at Delta. Delta moved right. They went right. The retired mechanic's back gate was exactly where the bartender said it was. A chain-link gate with a latch that had not functioned in years, held closed by the friction of the frame more than anything else. Cole pushed it, and it opened, and they were through and moving. Palmer Street was quiet. Normal morning traffic, ordinary people, the unremarkable sound of a neighborhood going about its Thursday. Cole walked at pace, not running, because running was a signal, and signals were what the lead man's people were watching for. Maya walked beside him. Delta moved on Cole's left, off-leash, loose lead pace, the working movement that was faster than a pet walk and slower than an active deployment, and looked to the unobservant eye like a man and a woman walking a dog. Cole's phone had no signal. He had confirmed that in the diner. The cell repeater was still down. They were off the grid. 2 blocks down Palmer, Cole heard an engine.
Not the idling of the SUVs, a moving engine, coming from the direction of Garrison, traveling at a pace that was too measured for ordinary traffic. "Don't look," he said quietly. Maya did not look. The vehicle passed. A black SUV, tinted windows, moving east on the cross street ahead of them. Cole watched it from his peripheral vision. It did not slow, did not stop. It was pattern scanning rather than confirming. They were looking for the uniform and the woman in the apron. Delta's ears tracked the vehicle until it was passed, then returned forward. "They're running a grid," Maya said. Her voice was completely even. "We have 23 minutes, Cole said. 22, she corrected. 1 block from the library, Cole's assessment of the geometry changed. 2 men on foot, civilian clothing, moving in the specific pattern that trained people used when covering a search grid on foot. They were ahead of the vehicle, on Palmer, 70 yards and closing from the opposite direction. Cole stopped at the cross street. He turned as if examining something on the building behind him, giving his back to the 2 approaching men. "How close?" Maya said. She had not looked either. 70 yards, closing at normal walking pace. They have not confirmed us yet. Cole looked at Delta. The dog's nose was up, reading the approaching men. His tail was down, not aggressive, identified. Delta has them. He won't react unless they commit. "If they confirm us, they'll call the vehicles in," Maya said. 14 minutes, the library, it all goes out the window. "Can you get inside the library without being identified?" Cole said. "Not the front entrance. There are 4 men who have been briefed on my face." "Side entrance?" She thought for 2 seconds. "There's a staff entrance on the building's left side. It requires a code." She paused. "It required a code 8 months ago when the building layout was in a case file I read." Cole looked at her. "You read the case file for this library." "I read every building layout within a quarter mile of my location when I established the cover," she said. "Standard protocol." She paused. The code was a 4-digit number based on the building's zip code, with 2 digits transposed. Standard municipal utility configuration. "Has it changed in 8 months?" "Municipal building codes typically cycle every 18 months, she said. 8 months puts us inside the window. The 2 men on foot were 50 yards now. Cole could see them more clearly, the way their eyes were moving, the specific scan pattern of people who had been briefed on what to look for and were executing a methodical search rather than reacting to a visual confirmation. "We move now," Cole said. "Same pace. Left at the next corner. Stay on my right." They moved. Delta moved with them without instruction. The corner came up, and Cole took it without hesitation, and they were out of the foot team's sightline before the 50 yards closed to 30. The library's side staff entrance was on a quiet stretch between the library's main entrance and the parking structure on its east side. Maya went to the keypad without pausing, the specific motion of someone who had run the sequence in their head enough times that the physical execution was a confirmation rather than an attempt. She entered 4 digits. The lock clicked. They were inside. The library was a Thursday morning library. Quiet. A few patrons at reading tables. A staff member at the reference desk who looked up at their entrance and started to speak. Cole showed his military ID in the same motion. "Federal matter," he said. "We need a quiet room. Staff only." The reference librarian, a woman in her 50s, with the calm, authoritative manner of someone who had managed unexpected situations before, because public libraries absorb more unexpected situations than people gave them credit for, looked at his ID, looked at Maya, looked at Delta, and said, "Reading room B is open," and pointed, without asking a single additional question. They went to reading room B. Cole closed the door. He looked at his watch. 11 minutes. Maya sat at the reading table and placed the drive on the surface in front of her. Under the library's fluorescent light, Cole could see it clearly for the first time. Smaller than he had imagined, flat and unremarkable. The specific design of something built to be carried and not noticed. 14 months on that chain, he said. 14 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, she said. She looked at it without touching it. I have not opened it since the operation ended. I have not connected it to any device. I have carried it because it was the only thing left of what my team did, and I was not going to let the program that killed them also erase the proof of what they found. Cole looked at her. The full picture of the morning, from the corner booth to this room, organized itself in the specific way that significant things organized when you had enough distance to see the shape of them. A woman who had been listed as dead for 8 months. A team that had collected evidence on a trafficking network with government connections. A program that had absorbed the intelligence and then classified the people who collected it as liabilities. 8 months of a name that was not her name, and a life that was not her life, and a drive on a chain against her sternum through every shift in a diner where no one knew anything. Your XO at Bragg, Cole said. Does he know the program absorbed the intelligence? He knows the reclassification happened, she said. He does not know what they did with what we collected. He has been trying to obtain that information through official channels for 14 months. She paused. He has been running into walls, because the walls are staffed by people who are protecting the program. Webb can reach him, Cole said. Webb can do more than reach him, she said. Webb has been building a parallel case for 9 months. He has the program's financial structure, the private contractor relationships, the operational history. What he does not have is the direct intelligence from the operation itself, the evidence that shows what the program was actually protecting when it classified my team as casualties. She touched the drive. This is that evidence. Delta lifted his head from where he had settled at Cole's feet. His ears came forward, the specific alert posture. Not the full working posture, the mid-level attention of a dog that had heard something that was not yet a threat, but required monitoring. Cole checked the time. 8 minutes. Someone had come into the library. He stood and moved to the reading room door and opened it by an inch. The reference desk was visible from this angle. 2 men had come through the main entrance. Clean, tactical clothing. Civilian. The same profile as the men from the diner. They were speaking to the reference librarian. Cole closed the door quietly. He looked at Maya. She had already understood from his face.
They ran the grid and checked adjacent buildings, she said.
Yes. Cole looked at the room. 1 door. 2 windows, high and narrow, above head level. Delta was on his feet now, full working posture, nose toward the door.
6 minutes, Maya said.
I know.
If Webb's people come in through the main entrance, they come in through the same door those men are watching.
I know, Cole said again. He looked at the drive on the table. He looked at Maya. He thought about 14 months and 3 dead team members, and a program that had decided that doing the right thing and surviving it were incompatible. He thought about the lead man's word. Collateral. He looked at Delta. Delta was watching him with the amber eyes that had been right every time and had not required explanation for any of it. Cole had learned the specific lesson of those eyes over 14 months and 1 morning in a roadside diner. The lesson was that the clearest information came not from planning, but from the willingness to read what was in front of you and trust it. What was in front of him was a woman who had carried the truth for 14 months and had not dropped it. His phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. Full signal. He looked up. In the ceiling corner, a cell signal booster, the library's own system, independent of the diner's compromised repeater. He had a signal. He looked at Maya. Webb, call him directly, not the landline, your voice. Maya picked up his phone. She dialed. It rang once.
"I'm in the building," Webb said. Not his voice, a different voice. Woman, professional, tight. "Reading room B. We need 30 seconds." The door opened. Not the two men from the lobby. A woman in civilian clothing, mid-30s, moving with the specific controlled efficiency that Cole recognized as a person who had done entries before. Behind her, a man, the same profile. Delta did not growl. Cole looked at the dog. Delta had made his assessment, and his tail had moved once, slow and certain. "Mr. Merritt," the woman said. She showed credentials, private intelligence firm, a name Cole did not recognize but whose format he understood. "We have a vehicle at the staff exit. We have 2 minutes before they reconfigure the outside perimeter." Cole looked at Maya. Maya looked at the drive. She picked it up and put it back on the chain, and the chain went back around her neck with the specific, practiced motion of 14 months of doing that exact thing. She looked at Cole. Something in her expression had shifted. Not relief, not yet. The specific quality of a person who has been managing an unbearable weight alone and has just received the first real evidence that the management is no longer entirely theirs. "You could have called Webb 8 months ago," Cole said. Not accusation. Honest question. "8 months ago, I did not know if Webb was clean," she said. "I did not know if anyone was clean. I did not know what I had to offer someone I was asking to trust." She paused. "I needed the morning in the diner. I needed to see what happened when the lead man came through the door. I needed to know if the intelligence was still something worth the cost of surfacing." She looked at Delta. "And I needed a dog to not growl at the people coming through the door." Delta's tail moved once. The woman at the door said, "Now." They went. The staff exit opened onto a narrow service alley, and the vehicle was already there. A civilian sedan, dark, engine running, the specific unremarkable appearance of a car that was designed to not be noticed. The woman from Webb's team had the rear door open before they reached it. Cole looked both directions down the alley. Clear. He looked at Delta. Delta's nose swept left, swept right, and then the dog loaded into the rear seat with the calm efficiency of an animal that had assessed the transport and found it acceptable. Maya got in. Cole got in. The door closed. The car moved immediately. "Where are we going?" Cole said. The woman in the passenger seat turned to face them. "Federal Building in Raleigh. 2 hours. We have a clean chain of custody team waiting to receive the drive, and a federal prosecutor who has been briefed on the program through Webb's case documentation." She paused. "The prosecutor's name is Ellen Park. She has been building a subpoena case for 4 months. She needed the direct intelligence from the operation to go to a grand jury." 4 months, Maya said. "Webb has been building toward this for 9, the woman said. "He told me this morning that he had been missing the piece that made everything else provable." She looked at Maya. "He also said that when he received your call, he understood for the first time why the piece had taken this long to arrive." "Why?" Cole asked. "Because the only person who could deliver it safely had to be certain it would be received by people who could protect it," the woman said. "And certainty like that takes time to build." She looked at Maya steadily. "You waited until the morning when the lead man confirmed through his own actions that the program was real and active and willing to use civilians. You waited until there was a witness with standing who could corroborate everything. You waited until calling Webb was not a risk, but a trigger." She paused. "He said you were running the operation from inside the cover the entire time." Maya did not respond. Cole looked at her profile, the specific quality of a person receiving information that confirmed a calculation they had been running alone for so long that having it confirmed by someone else felt strange. Not like validation, like translation. Like someone finally saying in a language other people could understand what had only existed in her own internal language until now. "My XO,"
she said. At Bragg. Webb reached him 40 minutes ago, the woman said. He is being brought to Raleigh through a separate route. She paused. He asked one question when Webb told him you were alive. Maya waited. He asked if you had the drive. What did Webb tell him? He said yes, and that you had been carrying it for 14 months. The woman's voice was neutral, but the neutrality had something underneath it. Your XO did not speak for approximately 10 seconds. Then he said he had known you would not drop it. He said he had known it since the operation, and that was why he had not stopped trying through official channels, even when every channel produced the same wall. She looked at Maya. He said he was building the external pressure, while he assumed you were building the internal evidence. He said he had been waiting for you to surface. Cole watched Maya absorb that. The specific, layered process of a person receiving information that changes the shape of something they thought they understood. She had believed she was working alone. She had been half of a system she did not know was a system. Her XO at Bragg, hitting walls through official channels for 14 months, and her, carrying the evidence under a name that was not her name, had been running two halves of the same operation without communication. Tom Hale and Sarah Vance. Different directions, same center. Delta pressed against her left side from his position in the rear seat. She put her hand on the dog's back without looking at him. The car moved through Jacksonville morning traffic. Ordinary streets, ordinary Thursday. Two people and a dog in the back seat of a civilian sedan with 14 months of evidence around one of their necks, moving away from a diner where 5 bikers had made a decision they did not understand, and 4 SUVs had made a calculation that was currently being revised at a level above the lead man's authority. Cole's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen, a number he did not recognize. He showed it to the woman in the passenger seat. Don't answer it, she said immediately. Lead man, Cole said. Someone above him, she said. The call coming directly to your phone means they pulled your number from the task force directory in the last 40 minutes. It means they have identified you as the variable, and they are attempting to open a direct channel before we reach Raleigh. She looked at the driver. Increase speed. The car accelerated. The phone buzzed a second time. Cole looked at it. If I don't answer, they assume we're already in a secure channel. Yes, the woman said, which tells them the window for a road intercept is closing, which means they will have to make a decision about whether to attempt a highway intercept or let this proceed. She paused. A highway intercept of a vehicle carrying a federal witness in transit to a federal building creates a record that is significantly more difficult to manage than a civilian extraction from a roadside diner. She looked at Cole. They are calculating whether the cost of creating that record exceeds the cost of what we are carrying. It doesn't, Maya said. Her voice was quiet and certain. What I have on this drive is worth more to them than any record they would create trying to stop us. They will try. The car was on the highway when the SUV appeared. Not behind them. Ahead. Positions on the shoulder of the southbound lane, facing north, engine running. Not a coincidence. The geometry was the same geometry as the diner parking lot. The positioning of people who had been briefed on the route and had moved to intercept rather than pursue. The driver said one word. Alternate. The car moved right, taking the next exit without signaling, and the highway disappeared behind them, and they were on surface roads, with the SUV receding in the side mirror, and Cole watching the mirror with the specific attention of someone counting seconds between a threat acknowledged and the threat resolved. Delta had not moved. His chin was on Maya's leg, and his amber eyes were on Cole's face, with the patient, steady attention of a dog that had decided the person he was watching was managing the situation correctly and required presence rather than assistance. They'll recalculate the alternate routes,
Cole said.
They have 2 minutes before we reach the county line, the driver said. County line changes their jurisdictional exposure. He said it without explaining what that meant. Cole understood. Private contractors operating across county lines in pursuit of a vehicle en route to a federal building required authorization that took longer than 2 minutes to obtain. The 2-minute window was the window. The car moved through it. The county line came up as a sign on the highway ramp they rejoined 2 minutes later. Cole watched it pass through the window. Behind them, no SUVs, no pursuit. The mirror was clean. The driver's posture changed by 1 degree. Not relaxed, resolved. 90 minutes to Raleigh, the woman said. Maya looked out the window. Her hand was still on Delta's back, and Delta was still against her, and the drive was still on the chain at her throat. And 90 minutes was the distance between 14 months of a life that was not her life, and the moment when she handed the thing she had been carrying to the person who could do what needed to be done with it. "My team's names," she said. It came out quietly, not addressed to anyone in particular. The specific register of a person saying something that has been held internally for so long that saying it aloud requires a certain kind of gathering first. Specialist Diane Cho, Corporal James Wen, Gunnery Sergeant Robert Park. She paused. They are listed as casualties in a training exercise in Virginia. The date of the listed exercise is 3 weeks after the date of the actual operation in Eastern Europe. She looked at Cole. The discrepancy is in the drive. Tom built the case to include the documented timeline, the original operational orders against the falsified records, everything that proves the listing was manufactured. Her jaw held for a moment. They deserve to have the record corrected. Cole looked at her. He had nothing to offer that was adequate to the weight of what she had just said, and he did not try to offer something inadequate. He looked at the window. He looked at Delta. He thought about the specific, inarguable value of people who did things that needed doing and did not survive long enough to receive the acknowledgement that was owed them. He thought about 14 months and what 14 months could do to a person's understanding of what was worth doing and what it cost. "They'll get the correction," he said. He said it the way you said things you were certain of, not to comfort, but to confirm. The program cannot classify a grand jury indictment. Once Park takes this to a federal judge, the record becomes public, and the public record is permanent. Maya looked at him. "You sound certain." "Webb has been building for 9 months, Cole said. Your XO has been building for 14. You have been carrying the center of it for 14 months, and you did not drop it." He looked at the drive at her throat. "You are 90 minutes from a federal prosecutor who has been waiting for exactly what you have. The program spent 3 weeks locating you, and this morning trying to collect you before you could reach that prosecutor." He looked at her steadily. "They tried that hard because they are afraid of what happens when you get there. Which means you get there." Delta's tail moved. 90 minutes later, the federal building in Raleigh received them through a secured entrance that bypassed the public lobby. Federal prosecutor Ellen Park was in the conference room, mid-40s, the specific focused energy of someone who had been waiting for a particular piece of something for 4 months and had just been told it was in the building. Sarah Vance's XO was already there. Lieutenant Commander David Reyes, still in civilian clothing from the drive from Bragg, standing at the window with his back to the room and his shoulders carrying the specific shape of someone who had been holding something for 14 months and was a few seconds from setting it down. He turned when she came through the door. Cole watched from the doorway. He did not go in. This was not his room to be in. Reyes looked at Sarah Vance for 3 seconds without speaking. The specific silence of 2 people who have been working toward the same thing from different directions for long enough that finding themselves in the same room feels like a structural shift in the world they have been operating in. "You have it," he said. "I have it,
she said. He exhaled. One long, complete exhale. The release of 14 months of sustained effort that had been maintained on the probability rather than the certainty of this moment. She took the chain from her neck. She set the drive on the conference table. She looked at Park. "The decryption key is split," she said. "I have half. My XO has the other. We need a secure terminal, and I need to verify your chain of custody protocol before the drive leaves my line of sight." Park's expression was the expression of someone receiving exactly what they needed in exactly the format they needed it. "Agreed," she said. "All of it. We'll do it your way."
Cole stood in the doorway with Delta at his feet and watched a federal prosecutor and the lieutenant commander who had been listed as dead and an XO who had been hitting walls for 14 months begin the specific, methodical work of opening an encrypted drive that contained the evidence that would end a program that had decided it was above the cost of what it had done. Delta looked up at him. Amber eyes. Patient. Present. Cole looked back at his dog. He thought about the corner booth at the Pinewood Diner, about a chair scraping tile, and a woman in an apron who had said, "Let go," in the voice of someone who had said it in worse places. About the specific, unrepeatable coincidence of a working dog pulling his handler's attention toward a parking lot at 8 in the morning on a Thursday in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Not coincidence. The word was wrong. Delta did not operate on coincidence. Delta operated on attention, on the complete, unconditional attention of an animal that had been trained to read the world without the human preference for convenient interpretation. The dog had read the room correctly every time. The threat, the civilians, the tactical men, Webb's people, the difference between all of them. Not because he had been briefed, because he had been paying attention. Cole thought about that, about the specific value of paying attention without agenda, about what it cost and what it produced. The retired couple from the diner were being interviewed by local law enforcement right now. The truck driver, the college kid, the bartender who had given him a work shirt and pointed him toward a mechanic's back gate. People who had been in a room where something large and dangerous had happened, and had managed themselves with more clarity than most training produced. He thought about Slade on the floor of the diner, the specific stripped-down education that the morning had provided to a man who had walked in looking for a performance and had ended up in a room where the only performance that mattered was the one he had not known he was watching. He thought about Sarah Vance, about 8 months of an apron and a name that was not her name, and a drive on a chain, and 3 dead teammates whose record was about to be corrected in a federal court document that could not be classified. He thought about Lieutenant Commander Sarah Vance, who had run an operation that produced evidence that mattered, and had survived the attempt to erase her, and had carried the evidence through 14 months and one Thursday morning in a diner, and had handed it to the person who could finish what her team had started. She had never been buried. The program had needed to believe she was. There was a difference between those two things, and the difference was everything. Delta's tail moved once, slow and certain. The rhythm of a dog that had done the work and understood it was done, and was content with the outcome, which was the only measure that mattered. Cole put his hand on the dog's back. "Good boy," he said. The drive was open. The evidence was real. 3 names that had been listed as training casualties in Virginia were going to be corrected in a federal record that would outlast every attempt to bury them. And in a conference room in a federal building in Raleigh, a woman who had carried 14 months of truth on a chain against her skin was watching the truth become the kind of official, permanent, unchallengeable record that no program and no reclassification order and no contractor team in 4 SUVs could reach. Some things are worth carrying 14 months. Some truths are worth 8 months of a name that is not your name and a life that is not your life.
Some mornings are worth the Thursday that precedes them.
And some dogs refuse to drive past the thing that matters.
Delta always had. Delta always would. That was the whole story. That was all of it. And it was enough.